The notification appeared while I was waiting in line at the pharmacy. Just a normal Tuesday afternoon, picking up allergy medication, thinking about what to make for dinner. Then my phone buzzed with a purchase alert that made my stomach drop straight through the floor. Transaction approved. $2,347.89. Seaside Haven Resort and Spa. I blinked at the screen, convinced I'd misread it. But the numbers stayed exactly the same. $2,300. A luxury resort I'd never heard of. A weekend package I definitely hadn't booked. My throat went dry. The woman behind the counter was asking me something, but her voice sounded far away, like I was underwater. I managed to pay for my prescription somehow, my hands moving on autopilot while my brain tried to process what I'd just seen. Outside in the parking lot, I sat in my car with the engine off and pulled up my banking app. The charge was there, pending but real. Deluxe Ocean View Suite. Couples Spa Package. Champagne Welcome Basket. My boyfriend had my credit card. I'd given it to him 6 months ago when his own card got declined at dinner. Told him to keep it for emergencies. This wasn't an emergency. I didn't drive home immediately. Instead, I sat there scrolling through my transaction history, looking for anything else unusual. At first, I didn't find anything obvious. Just normal charges. Groceries, gas stations, the occasional restaurant meal. Then I noticed a pattern I'd missed before. Small charges at places I didn't recognize. A florist in the next town over. A wine shop I'd never visited. A boutique clothing store that definitely wasn't my style. They were spaced out carefully, never more than 1 or 2 a week. Small enough that I wouldn't notice in my regular budgeting. But together they added up. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't a one-time mistake. Trevor had been using my card for months, buying things for someone else, building a whole separate life on my money. My hands were shaking now, but not with tears. With anger. The kind that makes everything crystal clear instead of blurry. I took a screenshot of every suspicious charge. Organized them by date in a folder on my phone. Then I started my car and drove home, my mind already working through what came next. My name is Felicity Carver, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a project coordinator for a construction company, managing timelines and budgets for commercial builds. People say I'm detail-oriented, maybe too much sometimes. I notice when numbers don't add up. Trevor Ashford had been my boyfriend for 2 years. We'd met at a friend's barbecue, and he'd seemed perfect at first. Funny, affectionate, full of big plans for his photography business. He was between opportunities when we started dating, but I didn't mind. Everyone hits rough patches. Except his rough patch never really ended. His photography business never quite took off. He picked up freelance gigs occasionally, but nothing stable. Meanwhile, I covered more and more of our shared expenses. Rent, utilities, groceries. I told myself it was temporary, that I was investing in our future together. Now I understood what I'd actually been investing in. Sitting in my car outside our apartment building, I looked at that resort charge again. Trevor was inside right now, probably watching television or scrolling through his phone, completely unaware that I knew. He had no idea what was coming. I walked into our apartment with my pharmacy bag and found Trevor exactly where I'd pictured him. Sprawled on the couch that I'd bought, eating chips from a bag he'd purchased with my money, watching a streaming service I paid for monthly. "Hey babe," he said without looking away from the screen. "How was your day?" "Fine," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Yours?" "Same old. Had a potential client call, but they wanted to negotiate my rates down. Told them no thanks." He finally glanced over, grinning. "You've got to value your work, right?" I set my bag on the kitchen counter, watching him from the corner of my eye. He looked completely relaxed, comfortable, confident that everything was fine. "Right," I said slowly. "Did you do anything else today?" "Not really. Worked on editing some photos. Might grab drinks with Nathan later if that's cool." Nathan. His friend from college. I wondered if Nathan knew about the resort booking. If he was part of whatever Trevor had planned for this weekend. Sure, I told him. That's fine. I didn't mention the charge. Not yet. I needed more information first. That night, after Trevor left to meet Nathan, I opened my laptop and started digging deeper. I pulled up every credit card statement from the past 6 months and began highlighting charges I hadn't made personally. The pattern became clearer with every page. Flowers ordered during weeks I'd been traveling for work. Restaurant charges in towns an hour away. Movie tickets purchased in pairs on nights Trevor had claimed he was staying home. A jewelry purchase from 3 months ago that I'd never received. I created a spreadsheet because that's what I do when problems need solving. Date, merchant, amount, Trevor's explanation if he'd given one. Most of the charges happened when I was busy or away. He'd been strategic about it. The resort booking was just the biggest one. The most expensive. The most obvious. I sat back from my laptop, feeling something shift inside me. This wasn't about a weekend trip. This was about a systematic pattern of deception. Trevor had been living a double life, funded entirely by my income, while presenting himself to me as struggling and unlucky. The betrayal hurt, but the calculated nature of it made me furious. I remembered the conversation when I'd first given Trevor my credit card. We'd been at dinner, celebrating my promotion at work. When the bill came, his card was declined. He'd looked embarrassed, apologizing while the server waited awkwardly. I'd paid without thinking twice, then handed him my card afterward. "Keep it for now," I'd said. "Until you get yours sorted out." He'd hugged me, told me I was amazing, promised it was temporary. That was 6 months ago. He'd never given the card back. Never mentioned getting his own situation fixed. Just quietly integrated my money into his life while keeping me convinced he was trying his best. I'd been so focused on being supportive, on not making him feel bad about his financial struggles, that I'd missed what was actually happening. He wasn't struggling. He was spending freely. Just not on us. The memory tasted different now. Sour and manipulative instead of sweet. Every thank you, every promise to pay me back, every claim that things would turn around soon, all of it had been performance. I closed my laptop and went to bed alone, already planning my next move. The next morning I called my credit card company during my lunch break at work. I sat in my car in the parking lot, windows up, phone pressed to my ear. "I need to dispute a charge," I told the representative who answered. She was professional and efficient. Asked me which transaction, why I was disputing it. I gave her the resort booking amount and explained calmly that I hadn't authorized it. "I'll need to file a formal dispute," she said. "This will trigger an investigation into the charge. We'll contact the merchant and review the authorization details. Is the card currently in your possession?" I hesitated for just a moment. "No. Someone else has been using it with my permission for small purchases. But not for this." "I understand. We'll need to look at the usage pattern to determine if this was unauthorized use or fraud. I'm going to ask you some questions about recent transactions." My pulse quickened. "Okay." She walked me through charges from the past 90 days. I confirmed which ones I'd made personally. The list was shorter than I expected. "I see," she said carefully. "I'm going to recommend we freeze this card and issue you a new one. The investigation will take 7 to 10 business days." I thanked her and hung up. Something had started moving that I couldn't stop now. Trevor called me that afternoon while I was in a meeting. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message during my break. "Hey, something weird is happening with the card. It got declined when I tried to grab lunch. Can you check if there's an issue? Call me back." His voice sounded confused but not worried. He probably thought it was a simple technical problem. A temporary glitch he could wait out. I didn't call him back immediately. Instead I texted, "At work. We'll check later." I wanted him to sit with the uncertainty for a while. Wanted him to wonder what was happening. It was petty maybe, but it felt like a small piece of control in a situation where I'd had none. By the time I got home that evening, he'd tried calling twice more. I found him pacing in the kitchen, his phone in his hand. "Finally," he said when I walked in. "Did you check the card? Something's wrong with it. I've been trying to use it all day and it keeps declining." I set down my work bag slowly. "I froze it." He stopped pacing. "What? Why?" "Because there was a charge I didn't recognize. I called the bank to dispute it." The color drained from his face. "What charge?" I met his eyes steadily. "You tell me." Trevor tried to laugh it off at first. "Babe, there must be some mistake." "What are you talking about?" "A resort booking. Over $2,000. Ring any bells?" He ran a hand through his hair, and I watched him calculate how to play this. His expression shifted through several options before landing on confused innocence. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe it's fraud. You should definitely dispute it." "I already did. The bank is investigating all recent charges to establish a usage pattern." That's when real panic flashed across his face. Just for a second, but I caught it. "All charges? That seems extreme for one mistake." "They want to be thorough," I said, moving past him to the refrigerator. I pulled out ingredients for dinner like this was a normal conversation. Like my hands weren't trembling with controlled rage. Trevor watched me from the doorway. "How long until they fix it?" "I need access to. We need the card working. 7 to 10 business days for the investigation. Then they'll issue a new card if everything checks out." I started chopping vegetables with more force than necessary. "That's ridiculous," he muttered. "What am I supposed to use in the meantime?" I looked up from the cutting board. "Your own card." The silence that followed told me everything. He tried a different approach over dinner. Apologetic. Vulnerable. The version of Trevor that had worked on me so many times before. "I know I've been depending on you too much financially," he said, pushing food around his plate. "I hate that I'm in this position. It makes me feel like less of a man, you know." I took a sip of water, watching him over the rim of my glass. "I've been trying so hard to get the photography business profitable," he continued. "But it takes time to build a client base. I just need a few more months." "How many months have you been saying that?" I asked quietly. He looked up, surprised by the edge in my voice. "I'm not trying to make you feel bad," I said. "I'm genuinely asking. How long have you been telling me you just need a few more months?" Trevor's jaw tightened. "I don't know. It's not like I'm keeping count." "I am. It's been 2 years. Building a business takes time, Felicity. Not everyone gets a stable paycheck like you do. Some of us are trying to create something." The implied criticism stung, probably because it was designed to make me feel guilty for having stability, for questioning him. But I didn't take the bait this time. "You're right," I said calmly. "Building a business does take time. But it shouldn't take my credit card to fund weekend getaways for 2. His fork clattered against his plate. I didn't wait for his response. I stood up from the table, cleared my plate, and went to our bedroom. I could hear Trevor behind me, his chair scraping back, his footsteps following. "Felicity, wait. Let me explain." "Explain what exactly?" I turned to face him in the doorway. "Explain the resort booking. The flowers I never received. The jewelry purchase from March. The restaurant charges in cities an hour away." His face went white. "You went through all the statements." "It's my card. My money." "Yes, I went through the statements. That's..." He started, then stopped, seeming to realize that accusing me of invading his privacy wouldn't work when he'd been stealing from me. I moved to the closet and pulled out my overnight bag. "What are you doing?" His voice rose slightly. "Staying at my sister's for a few days. I need space to think." "You're leaving. Over a misunderstanding." I turned to look at him fully. Really look at him. This man I'd supported for 2 years, believed in, defended to friends who'd questioned whether he was taking advantage of me. "It's not a misunderstanding, Trevor. It's theft, and fraud, and betrayal. Take your pick." "I love you," he said desperately. Whatever you think happened, I love you. I zipped my bag closed. If this is how you treat people you love, I'm terrified to see how you treat people you don't. My sister Nina lived 20 minutes away in a small house she'd bought herself 5 years ago. She was 2 years younger than me but somehow always seemed to have her life more together. When I showed up at her door with my overnight bag, she took one look at my face and pulled me inside. Wine or whiskey? She asked. Information first. Alcohol after. We sat at her kitchen table and I told her everything. The resort charge. The investigation. The months of smaller purchases I'd finally connected. Trevor's denial and deflection when confronted. Nina listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. I knew he was using you, she said finally. I just didn't realize it was this calculated. You never said anything. Would you have listened 6 months ago? She raised an eyebrow. You were so convinced he just needed support while building his business. She was right. I wouldn't have listened. I'd been too invested in the story I'd told myself about us. The bank investigation is going to find everything, I said quietly. All the charges he made. They'll document the pattern. Good. You need that documentation. For what? Nina leaned forward. For whatever comes next. Because you're not going back to him, right? I thought about Trevor's face when I'd confronted him. Panic. The deflection. The way he tried to make me feel guilty for having a stable job. No, I said. I'm not going back. The bank called 3 days later while I was at work. I stepped outside to take the call, my heart pounding even though I knew what was coming. Ms. Carver, this is Vanessa from the Fraud Investigation Department. I'm calling about the dispute you filed regarding the Seaside Haven Resort charge. Yes, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. We've completed our review of the transaction and the surrounding usage pattern. Based on our findings, we're classifying this as unauthorized use. The charge has been reversed, and we're issuing you a full refund. Relief washed over me. Thank you. However, Vanessa continued, her tone shifting slightly, our investigation revealed multiple additional unauthorized transactions over the past 6 months. The total amount exceeds $8,000. I sat down heavily on a bench outside my office building. $1,000. I'd known it was bad, but hearing the actual number made it real in a way spreadsheets hadn't. We're reversing all identified unauthorized charges, Vanessa explained. You should see the credits within 3 to 5 business days. We've also flagged this account for potential fraud charges, which means we're required to file a report with local law enforcement. Law enforcement. My stomach dropped. Yes. When fraud exceeds certain thresholds, especially with a clear pattern of unauthorized use, we have legal obligations to report it. You'll likely be contacted by a detective to provide a statement. I thanked her numbly and ended the call. Trevor didn't just betray me. He'd committed actual crimes. I didn't tell Trevor about the bank's findings immediately. I needed time to process what this meant. $1,000. Law enforcement involvement. The possibility of criminal charges. Part of me felt vindicated. He'd stolen from me systematically, and now there would be consequences beyond just our relationship ending. But another part felt heavy with the weight of what was about to happen. Nina had different thoughts when I told her that evening. He made his choices, she said firmly. He knew what he was doing was wrong and he did it anyway. Repeatedly. 4 months. I know. But criminal charges. That feels huge. It is huge. 'Cause what he did was huge. He didn't just cheat on you, Felicity. He committed fraud. He stole thousands of dollars. That's not relationship drama. That's a crime. She poured us both more wine. You didn't make him do this, she continued. You trusted him. You supported him. You gave him access to your card for emergencies. He's the one who decided to abuse that trust. I knew she was right. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were different things. My phone buzzed. Trevor calling. Again. I'd been ignoring his calls since the bank investigation concluded. Now I had a decision to make about whether to tell him what was coming. I let it go to voicemail. The detective called the next morning. Detective Ortega introduced herself and asked if I had time to come to the station to give a statement. Her voice was professional but kind, like she'd done this many times before. The credit card company filed a fraud report, she explained. Based on the amounts involved and the pattern of behavior, we're opening an investigation. I need to get your side of what happened. I scheduled an appointment for that afternoon during my lunch break. Sitting in the police station interview room felt surreal. I'd never been in trouble with the law, never even had a speeding ticket. And now I was here giving a statement about fraud committed by someone I'd loved. Detective Ortega was in her 40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She took me through everything chronologically. When I'd given Trevor the card. When I'd first noticed suspicious charges. How the resort booking had triggered my investigation. Did he have your permission to make these purchases? She asked. No. I gave him the card for emergencies and small shared expenses. Not for weekend getaways with someone else. Did you ever explicitly tell him there were limits on what he could charge? Thought about that. Not in so many words. But the context was clear. It was for groceries, gas, things we needed together. She made notes. Did he ever pay you back for any charges? No. He kept saying he would once his business picked up, but it never happened. Detective Ortega looked up from her notepad. Ms. Carver, based on what you've told me and what the bank provided, we have sufficient evidence to pursue charges. But I need you to understand what that means. This becomes a criminal case. He'll likely be charged with credit card fraud and theft. The amounts involved make it a felony. My hands felt cold. A felony? Yes. Multiple counts, most likely. The prosecutor will make the final decision, but with this level of documentation, it's almost certain. I nodded slowly, trying to absorb what she was saying. Do you want to proceed? She asked gently. I thought about Trevor. About the 2 years I'd spent supporting him. About every lie he'd told and every dollar he'd stolen. Yes, I said. I want to proceed. Trevor showed up at Nina's house that evening. I was washing dishes when the doorbell rang. Through the window I saw his car in the driveway. Nina appeared in the kitchen doorway. Want me to tell him to leave? No. I should talk to him. I dried my hands and went to the door. Trevor stood on the porch, looking rough. He hadn't shaved in days, and his eyes were red-rimmed. Can we talk? He asked. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. I didn't want him in Nina's space. What's there to talk about, Trevor? I messed up. I know that. But we can fix this. I'll pay you back every cent. I'll get a real job, something stable. Just don't throw away 2 years over this. You stole from me, I said quietly. For months. You used my money to take someone else on dates. On vacations. You bought her jewelry while I was paying your rent. It wasn't like that, he started. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. Make it make sense. He ran both hands through his hair, frustrated. I felt trapped. Like I couldn't breathe. You have this perfect career, this perfect life, and I was just stuck. She made me feel different. So you used my credit card to fund that feeling? I wasn't thinking clearly. I was going to tell you. I was going to end things with her. When? Before or after the resort weekend you booked? His jaw clenched. I cancelled that reservation. The bank already reversed the charge, along with $8,000 in other unauthorized purchases. The color drained from his face. $8,000. That's what you stole from me, Trevor. $8,000. He tried to grab my hand. Pulled away. Felicity, please. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Just tell me how to fix this. You can't fix it. It's already out of my hands. What do you mean? I looked him directly in the eyes. The bank filed a fraud report with the police. I gave a statement this afternoon. Detective Ortega said they have enough evidence to press charges. The silence stretched between us. Trevor's expression went through several stages: confusion, disbelief, anger, panic. "You went to the police." His voice rose. "You're trying to get me arrested." "I didn't go to them. The bank is required to report fraud over certain amounts. They contacted me." "But you gave a statement. You could have refused. You could have told them it was a misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was theft. $8,000 of systematic theft." "I'm your boyfriend," he shouted. "You're supposed to have my back. And you were supposed to not steal from me," I shot back, my own voice rising. "You were supposed to not lie to me every single day. You were supposed to not use my trust and my money to cheat on me. This is insane. You're actually going to let them charge me with a crime." "You committed a crime, Trevor. Multiple crimes, actually. The charges aren't my decision. That's up to the prosecutor." He stared at me like he was seeing someone completely different. "I don't even know who you are right now." "Funny," I said coldly. "I was thinking the same thing about you." The next few weeks passed in a blur of official proceedings. The prosecutor's office contacted me to confirm details. They were filing multiple counts of credit card fraud and felony theft. Trevor was formally charged and released on bail, which I assumed his parents paid since he had no money of his own. I had to change my locks because technically he'd had a key to my apartment, even though he'd never lived there officially. Nina came with me to Home Depot to pick out new deadbolts, making jokes to lighten the mood that didn't quite land. Work became my sanctuary. I threw myself into projects, stayed late, volunteered for extra assignments. Anything to keep my mind occupied. My coworkers noticed something was different but didn't pry. I was grateful for that. I wasn't ready to explain that my boyfriend had stolen thousands from me and was now facing felony charges. The hardest part was the quiet moments. Lying in bed at night, wondering how I'd missed the signs for so long. Questioning my own judgment. Replaying conversations and seeing them differently now. I'd trusted him completely. That trust had cost me $8,000 and 2 years of my life. But I was getting the money back. And I'd already reclaimed my life. Trevor's lawyer reached out to my lawyer. Yes, I'd had to hire a lawyer, with a plea bargain offer. Trevor would plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for restitution and probation instead of prison time. He wanted me to agree to support the plea deal. I met with my lawyer Andrew Chen in his office downtown. "You don't have to agree to anything," Andrew said. "The prosecutor makes the final call on plea bargains. But they might ask for your input since you're the victim. What do you think I should do? What do you want the outcome to be?" Thought about that. I want him to face consequences. Real ones. But I don't know if I want him to go to prison for years. That's understandable. This isn't just about punishment. It's about justice and closure. Andrew pulled out the proposed plea agreement. He'd plead guilty to 1 count of felony theft. The fraud charges would be dropped. He'd be on probation for 5 years, required to pay full restitution plus interest, and banned from having credit cards without court approval. No prison time. Not unless he violates probation or fails to pay restitution. It felt like a light sentence compared to what he'd done. But it also felt like enough. He'd have a felony conviction. His credit would be destroyed. He'd spend years paying me back. "Tell them I'll support the plea deal," I said finally. "On one condition." "What's that?" "He has to stay away from me completely. No contact. Ever." Andrew made a note. "I'll add a no-contact order to the agreement." The plea hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. I didn't have to attend, but I chose to. I wanted to see Trevor face the consequences of his choices. Wanted the closure of watching him admit, in front of a judge, what he'd done. Nina came with me for support. We sat in the back of the courtroom while other cases were processed first. Parking violations. Minor drug charges. Domestic disputes. When Trevor's case was called, he walked to the front with his lawyer. He looked smaller somehow. Defeated. The judge reviewed the plea agreement. Asked Trevor directly if he understood what he was pleading guilty to. "Yes, Your Honor," Trevor said quietly. "And did you commit the crime you're pleading guilty to?" "Theft of $8,000 from Felicity Carver through unauthorized use of her credit card." There was a long pause. I held my breath. "Yes, Your Honor. I did." Hearing him admit it, officially and on the record, felt like something releasing in my chest. Validation I hadn't realized I needed. The judge accepted the plea. Sentenced Trevor to 5 years probation. Ordered full restitution plus 15% interest. Implemented the no-contact order. It was over in less than 10 minutes. 2 years of my life. $1,000. Reduced to a 10-minute court proceeding. But it was enough. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt lighter than I had in months. Nina linked her arm through mine. "How are you feeling?" "Relieved. Angry. Validated. All of it at once." "That's normal. You're allowed to feel complicated things about this." We stopped for coffee on the way back to her place. Sat in the shop and watched people go by, living their normal lives, unaware of the small dramas and large betrayals happening all around them. "Are you going to date again?" Nina asked after a while. "Eventually. Not anytime soon." "Good. Take time to heal first. Figure out what you want." "I know what I want," I said firmly. "I want someone who sees my success and feels proud, not entitled to it. Someone who contributes equally instead of taking. Someone who doesn't lie." That's not asking too much. It shouldn't be. But apparently I need to be clearer about my standards. My phone buzzed with an email notification. The first restitution payment had been processed. Trevor's parents must have helped him make it, because there was no way he had that kind of money. I was getting my money back in monthly installments over 5 years. Every payment a reminder of what he'd done. Every payment proof that actions have consequences. 3 months after the plea hearing, I ran into Trevor's ex-girlfriend at a coffee shop. I recognized her from social media photos I'd found during my investigation. Younger than me by several years, with a kind of easy beauty that came from not yet knowing how cruel people could be. She approached me hesitantly. "Are you Felicity?" "Yes. I'm Autumn." I was the one Trevor was seeing. I set down my coffee carefully. "Okay. I wanted to apologize. I didn't know about you at first." He told me he was single. By the time I found out he had a girlfriend, I was already. She trailed off looking miserable. "Already invested," I finished for her. "Yeah. And he was so convincing about how you two were basically over. Just hadn't made it official yet." I'd heard that story before. It was probably the same one he'd told himself to justify what he was doing. "I broke up with him when I found out about the charges," Autumn continued. "About what he'd done with your credit card. I felt sick thinking about how I'd benefited from money he stole from you. You didn't steal it. He did. But I knew something was off. He never had money, but he'd take me to expensive places. Buy me things. I should have questioned it more." I looked at this young woman, recognizing something of my earlier self in her. He was good at making people believe his version of reality. "That's not your fault." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. For my part in it." "I appreciate that," I said honestly. After she left, I sat with my coffee and thought about patterns. Trevor hadn't just betrayed me. He'd lied to Autumn too. Built relationships on deception. The common denominator was him. That realization felt important. 6 months after everything fell apart, I went on my first date. His name was Dominic, and we'd matched on a dating app Nina had convinced me to join. He was an accountant, which felt appropriately careful and stable. We met for dinner at a casual restaurant. Nothing too expensive or romantic. I told him up front before we even ordered, that I'd recently gotten out of a serious relationship. "How recent?" he asked. 6 months. It ended badly. There were legal proceedings. Most people would have been scared off by that. But Dominic just nodded thoughtfully. My ex-wife cheated on me with my business partner, he said. Took me 2 years to trust anyone enough to date again. So I get it. We talked about boundaries and baggage. About taking things slow. About the importance of financial independence and clear communication. It wasn't a fairy tale. But it was honest. And after Trevor, honesty felt radical and precious. We went on a second date. Then a third. I didn't know if it would turn into something serious. But I knew I was ready to try. Ready to trust again carefully. Ready to build something new on foundations stronger than the ones that had crumbled. A year after the credit card charge that changed everything, I received the final restitution payment. The full $8,000 plus interest, deposited back into my account. Trevor had made every payment on time, probably to avoid violating probation. I stared at my account balance, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. The money was back. The legal case was closed. Trevor was prohibited from contacting me for the rest of his probation period. By every measurable standard I'd won. But winning hadn't fixed the hurt. Hadn't erased the 2 years I'd spent trusting someone who was lying to me daily. Hadn't given me back the version of myself who believed people at face value. I was different now. More cautious. More protective of my resources and my heart. Sometimes I wasn't sure if that was growth or damage. Nina said it was both. You can be wiser and wounded at the same time, she told me. The trick is not letting the wound become your whole identity. I took the restitution money and did something Trevor would never have expected. I donated half to a women's financial literacy program. Used the other half to start an emergency fund for myself. The money he'd stolen became a tool for helping other women protect themselves. That felt like the right kind of closure. Looking back now, I understand that the credit card charge didn't ruin my life. It revealed the truth about a life I'd been living based on lies. The dispute triggered an investigation that uncovered months of theft. The theft led to criminal charges. The charges led to a plea deal. The plea deal led to restitution and a no-contact order that gave me space to heal. Every step was painful. Every revelation hurt. But I learned that I was stronger than I'd known. That I could survive betrayal and come out the other side with my integrity intact. That choosing myself over someone else's comfort wasn't selfish. It was necessary. Trevor taught me what I don't want. What I won't accept. What I'll never tolerate again. And maybe that was worth $8,000 and 2 years of lessons. I still track my credit card charges carefully. Still notice when numbers don't add up. Still protect my resources and my trust like the valuable things they are. But I also take risks again. Date again. Trust again, gradually and with eyes wide open. Because the alternative, closing myself off completely, would mean Trevor won something he doesn't deserve to win. He took my money. He took my time. But he didn't take my ability to build something better with someone who actually deserves it. And in the end, that mattered more than any amount he could ever repay.